Hello everyone, my name is Endor, and don't hug me, I'm scared. Again. Yes, it's about time we return to this world of nightmares and puppetry. The TV show premiered around a year ago now. Consider this an anniversary gift. Also, a thanks for over 5,000 subscribers. That's fun. So what exactly are we doing today? Well, my dear viewer, we're going to be ranking all the Don't Hug Me I'm Scared teachers on their lessons, their teaching skills. Considering their profession, quote unquote, haven't you ever wondered which of them actually gave impactful and accurate lessons, and which of them didn't teach anything except gaslighting and lies? Well, now you won't have to. But first, the rules of this list so we're all on the same page. Just like my original video, which this is sort of a sequel to, there will be 12 spots on the list. One for each episode of Don't Hug Me I'm Scared, also meaning one spot for every teacher and or group of teachers. Another rule, what's considered a positive or negative for each teacher's teaching skill is dependent on what their lessons are, which is important because a few of them hide their true intentions behind their lessons and thus teach something different than what they want you to think they're actually teaching. Also, only teaching that comes directly from the teachers or their groups count as part of their lessons, as sometimes the main trio learns stuff from unrelated figures. And finally, the methods that the teachers use for their lessons will mostly not be accounted for, because whether or not they're ethical doesn't matter as long as they get their point across. It's nothing personal, it's just business. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's once again enter the weird world of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Alright, coming in 12th place, the absolute worst teacher in Don't Hug Me I'm Scared, to absolutely nobody's surprise, it's the Lamp.
Dreams are the movies that live in your head every night when you sleep in your bed.
This guy really sucks at teaching. Alright, his pros. He says that dreams are like movies that live in your head, which is kind of true, and he says that you have dreams every night, which is apparently true, even though a lot of people sometimes say that they never dream, but I guess we all do, you just have a hard time remembering. He doesn't really explain that either. In fact, let's go over his cons as to why he's such a bad teacher. Lamp says that Yellow Guy shouldn't be sleepy if he doesn't know how to have dreams, even though those are not connected in any way, and also you can't really learn how to have dreams. The only thing you can learn is how to create lucid dreams, I'm pretty sure. He says that you have dreams every night, which is true, except he doesn't explain anything about what they could be. He only gives 2 examples of dreams to Yellow Guy, about riding a horse and drowning in oil, but those are more like nightmares for Yellow Guy. And speaking of which, he doesn't explain nightmares, or lucid dreams, or emotional driven dreams, or anything at all really. Like, the Lamp in general just says things and barely tries to attach meaning to his words later. He's not giving a lesson, he's rambling on about, like, just trying to define dreams, all to the dismay of Yellow Guy. And by the end of it, it's pretty easy to tell that Yellow Guy didn't learn a single thing about dreams. He was just so busy being scared about the Lamp that it didn't stick with him. Nothing was learned in that lesson. So yeah, absolutely no surprise that Lamp is the worst teacher in Don't Hug Me I'm Scared. So we can only go up from here, but even then, the next few spots are not that much better. Coming in 11th place, a not much better teacher, but this time it's a group of teachers, the Healthy Band.
What's that? A pizza slice? But you're better off with plain white sauce.
What's that? Plain white sauce? Plain white sauce makes your teeth go grey.
Alright, they're pros. The spinach can says that lots of people get hungry, which is obviously true. Everyone gets hungry. Steak says that hungry comes from the body, and you should keep it healthy, which are both true things. Very basic things, but they're true. They say that eating too many unhealthy foods will make your teeth gray. And, well, yeah, that's technically true. It's more like not keeping your teeth clean. It's not really about the unhealthy foods sometimes. And probably the most important thing they say, which is true, is that you shouldn't eat food from a stranger's plate. Because, yeah, You really shouldn't eat food from a stranger's plate. You don't know what they're eating. But now, the many cons. Trust me, this goes over an entire page. Alright. They say that the body is like a house, with organs scattered all over, which is not totally related to the lesson, and plus that's also wrong, because they have hair in the left, and then they have an eyeball on the bottom. It's just a very messy graph. They say that food goes through the entire body and passes through all the organs, instead of, in actuality, where it passes through the chest cavity and through the intestines. Also something about healthy food is kind, while unhealthy food is rude, which is almost true, but they show bad examples with random foods for, both. They rudely ignore Duck's questioning of the lesson, not helping him understand anything, which is really bad teacher etiquette in real life too. They point at both a sandwich and spaghetti and say the same thing about them not being healthy, but not explaining anything except your gums will go gray. They show a completely random and messy food groups chart that doesn't explain anything. It's so misshapen, mismatched. I feel like nobody will be able to explain what you're actually looking at with that graph. They say that plain foods are healthy and fancy foods are not, with again random varying examples and just saying they aren't good without explaining anything. The fridge says that all food tastes great, but you shouldn't put stuff on your plate before you know if it's healthy, otherwise it's too late. I know that rhymes, but again, you have to sacrifice some meaning just to have the words rhyme, because that doesn't mean anything. Steak says that plain white sauce will make your teeth go gray, despite that contradicting his earlier statement about white sauce being healthy for the body. And also, Steak says that pie will make you sad inside, which is not really true. I feel like the worst that pie will do is, even though it is, for the most part unhealthy, you will feel guilty about eating it. At least some people will. And lastly, they say that if your teeth goes gray, eating yeast will make it go away, but too much yeast will make your teeth go gray. The healthy band is the definition of saying things and then just trying to attach meaning to the words later, and they do a really terrible job at it. Of course, the whole point of their lesson is that they're actually just lying and gaslighting the entire time, not truly teaching anything. I feel like anything that they actually did get right was just on accident, because they're saying so much random nonsense, which is easily why they're in 11th place of the teachers. And in 10th place, we have Shrignold and the Love Cult.
We love you.
You love us too.
I love you too, furry boy.
These guys are a mixed bag because they seem to kind of know what love is about, but at the same time, it's all just a facade to sort of lure you in with false promises. Well, yeah, because they're a cult. Well, I guess that makes sense. Alright, they're pros. Shrignold says that even though people are different, we can still love and accept each other, to live in harmony, which is, true. Shrignold gives Yellow Guy a tingly feeling on the inside, which is an example of what love can make you feel. The Friendly Cloud says that love is a feeling deep inside, which is also true. Shrignold says that to love is to care, show kindness, and to share, which are all, very true things as well. A couple of the other cult members say that you can show love by giving hugs, making gifts, and also you can love your pets. The Unicorn guy says that everyone has a special one, and this one is sort of tricky because technically, yes, that's true, more like due to statistics. There's so many people on the planet that yes, you do have a special one, but I guess in a negative way you could say the chances of you finding that special one are not that high. So, it's kind of a confusing situation there. They say that your heart will start beating faster and harder when you're in love, which is, also a thing that happens. Love is protected with a ring. Yeah, so, marriage. They say love grows and grows, which is contradictory to another statement that they also say. In fact, let's get into their cons. Shrignold says that Yellow Guy's hunger is actually loneliness, an emptiness per se, even though Yellow Guy actually hadn't eaten. This also goes against the true idea that love is a subjective feeling. You determine if you're in love in reality. It's not really a feeling you can point down. If you think you're in love, then you're actually in love. Shrignold says that the Love Cult all love Yellow Guy, even though they literally don't know him at all, so that's not possible, giving him a false impression of real love. The furry little creatures gaslights Yellow Guy by claiming that he also loves them, which is not true, and only warps the idea of love in Yellow Guy's brain again. Like, of course he doesn't love them, he doesn't know them either. Shrignold says that you can't love objects, which is just definitely not true. People have prized possessions, things that they treasure. Shrignold says that you need to save your love for your special one, even though in reality, love only grows, it doesn't split up. You know, the idea of, when I have more to love, my heart only grows bigger. It doesn't split into more pieces. They don't really explain the extremely complicated topic of a special one to Yellow Guy, instead showing a totally unrelated tale of a guy named Michael. They say that you just have to wait for a special one and they will come. Again, not accurate and barely explained. The special one topic is a whole can of worms. It's a whole can of worm. The love cult only gives examples of love between men and women, like over and over again, even claiming it's perfect and pure, which is, you know, a very closed-minded idea of love. And finally, they claim that love is everlasting, even though love can be tested and lost over time. So yeah, the love cult is just a very interesting situation because they seem to know some stuff about love, but again, it's just a facade. They trick you by giving you sort of fake truths to warp an idea in your head so that you'll join their cult. They're really terrible. And yeah, again, just very terrible teachers as well. Next up, in 9th place, we have Lily and Todney.
You can't have a family meeting. You're not a family.
Well, let's just have a bundle meeting. Wait, what were we again?
We could do a friends meeting.
Well, that's a stretch.
Cluster?
Who both try to teach a very warped idea of what family really is. So, they're pros. They say that family can also be friends, which is, yeah, true. Say that family is like a unit who can work together. Yes. Say that family can share a bunk bed and baths. Yep, also as well. They say family can share a meal. Say that family is devoted and also twins are family. Blood related, of course. Family is so much more than a word. Yes. They decided to take the trio with a very hands-on approach to see a real family in action, which is technically a good teacher thing, even though, well, we'll get to that. They say that all families need secrets, which is technically true. I guess, you know, between each other, yes, everyone needs secrets. And this is the best one. An uncle is like an extra cheeky father, but weaker and in the distance, which is probably the funniest way of explaining what an uncle is. However, there are cons. They say that just one other person can't be considered a family, saying you need a bunch of relatives for a family, which is totally not true. When family gives advice, you should always take the advice. Yeah, definitely not, Buster. And this one's a very random one. They say you're only a family if you have a landline, which is, no. They mentioned something about family having to do with haircuts? No. They convince Red Guy that Yellow Guy and Duck aren't his family, even though that's not true, because they're teaching only the blood-related side of what a family technically is. Tawny says that every family has a scent, whatever that means. And Tawny also claims that the trio can't have a family meeting since they're not a family, even though they are, which they end up learning for themselves later. And this one's the strangest point. They say that close friends can be family, but only if they literally become part of your family, like part of your everyday life. Which is almost a true thing that they could have said, but no, they twisted it on its head, trying to warp the idea of family that they have. Lily and Tawny's pros and cons were pretty mixed, actually, but definitely for the most part, they taught negative aspects of what a family should be instead of what a family truly can be, especially considering that for the most part they're only talking about the sort of dictionary definition of a blood-related family, even though in reality, just because you have blood-related relatives doesn't mean that they would be part of your family. A very complicated topic, but I have a feeling it's because Lily and Todney are taught the worst idea of what a family can be themselves. They are just kids after all. And in 8th place, we have Warren the Eagle.
Here's a quick story that might make you think twice about being a bad friend.
I hate this guy.
Okay, Warren is quite the case because, you know what? He actually gives a lot of great tips as to what friendship is. But there's just one very, very big problem, which we'll get to. But first, let's go over his pros. He explains why friendships sink when there's no respect, with Yellow Guy as an example. You know, if you don't respect your friends, you'll eventually push them away. He says that the only thing that will help friendships is respect and care. Which is, yeah, good point. When a friend treats you wrong, say, like, okay, stop. Otherwise known as, sort of make it known that you're not comfortable with the way that they're treating you. Sometimes, if you're not a good friend, then people will settle for their imaginary friends. Their brain friends, you could say. And yeah, some people will sort of start their own daydreaming in order to escape stressful situations. Good friendship also involves respecting what everyone wants to do, not just you. Yes, a good point there. And the final good point, friendship doesn't have to be about a lot of friends. Even just one best friend is great enough. And yeah, you only really need one friend in order to feel the full effects of what a proper friendship is. A lot of pros there, Warren. Great teaching. I feel like he didn't really learn that himself. It's more like just kind of reading whatever he has from the OK Stop organization, but still. However, he doesn't have that many cons, but the last one really sinks him down. He says that using your imagination is not a proper way to deal with bad friendship, which is, true. It doesn't really fix the friendship, but it is a coping mechanism, but it's very poorly explained. Imagination could be a great way for coping with your sort of stressful emotions and then dealing with the bad friendship later. And this is what sinks him down to the very depths for the most part. What undoes all his very great points, his pros, is that he gives great advice, but the thing is, he's a terrible friend. He is not good, and he can't take his own advice. So him teaching friendship is incredibly contradictory. He's just rude, he's selfish, and he's inconsiderate. Like, he doesn't, practice what he preaches, you could say. For the most part, Warren could have been a great teacher. It's just too bad that his actual personality and self is such a terrible being. Sorry, Warren. You really should have just been a nicer person. In 7th place, we have Briefcase.
Can you tell us what we're supposed to...
Almost forgot my briefcase.
Look, he's one of those guys who has one of himself.
Alright, pros. He says he wouldn't want to be late for his job, which is an example of a real thing you don't want to do for a job. He says that with the right job, it sometimes doesn't even feel like work, which can be true in the right circumstances. Some people have dream jobs, and when they get them, they have a great time. But of course, it can still feel like work because it is. But hey, the less stress the better, right? He tries to give the trio each a fitting job instead of any random job, so they, best perform. He gives the trio encouragement that they could pick any job that they want, which is not really true, but the proper encouragement is actually a great thing for a real teacher to do. He uses his brother, unemployed Brendan, as an example of someone without a job, which is, it's cruel, but at the same time, it works, I guess. He gives Duck a coin for a job well done, which is part of encouragement. You do a good job, you get paid. And here are his cons. He gives a lot of ridiculous examples of jobs. Of course, there's the regular, like gardener, actor, plumber, but then he also shows war hero, which is more of a title. Slug, yeah. He lists multiple things people do at jobs, but doesn't actually say the job titles in his song. You can be the one who hits the hammer when he's angry, you can be the one who kicks the ball in the big net, you can be the one who, he just keeps saying stuff like that over and over again. His lesson is unfortunately lost on the trio after leaving them in a factory for decades. Like, how do you expect them to remember what the heck is going on, dude? And he doesn't really acknowledge Duck's questioning as to what happened in the middle of the lesson. He could have probably brought on to light and maybe left them with some impression of what a real job is, but instead he just kind of goes away to give Brendan a bath. Briefcase. You kind of had it going for you, buddy. Sort of. You weren't really great at teaching about jobs, but you kind of had some factors in there. pretty good factors. But unfortunately, you just didn't get the fine details in there. And also, a decades and decades long break between the lesson is probably not great. So, yeah, 7th place you go. Alright, and in 6th place, we have Sketchbook.
I might paint a picture of a clown.
Whoa there, friend, you might need to slow down.
And you know what? Sketchbook is a very middle ground teacher. Has a lot of pros, has a few cons, very average. Alright, her pros. She encourages the trio to see more in everyday things, such as the orange with the silly face. She gives them an example of creative self-accessorizing with her colored hair that can be used to express herself. Helps the trio see fun shapes from the seemingly singular cloud, which is both impressive and ridiculous. She has the puppets arrange sticks into their favorite colors, which encourages craftsmanship too. Gives a helpful tip to the puppets to listen to their hearts, and rain, which is, another way of saying sounds, I guess, when pursuing creative endeavors. And of course, after realizing what creativity does to the trio, Sketchbook rightfully tells them never to try it again, for their own good, which is a very responsible move for her to make. Good on you, Sketchbook. But she does have a couple cons. She ruins Yellow Guy's painting of a clown with a ton of ink, which is very much discouraging his creative flow. She tells Yellow Guy that green is not a creative color, which is just uncalled for, and again discourages the creativity of one of her students. And she teaches the trio to listen to the voices in their brain when being creative, which was what ultimately leads to their horrific craftsmanship. Like, yeah, you should stick to listening to your hearts, guys. Don't listen to the voices in your brain. So yeah, Sketchbook, not great, not bad. She's fine, a decent teacher. And in 5th place, we have Choo Choo.
What's this stuff on it?
You did that.
No, I didn't.
I have a feeling Choo Choo would have been a much better teacher if he was just younger and less, troubled. Alright, his pros. He says that while you can go places by walking, it's not that great in the long run. Pun intended. You can go to more places on a bicycle and in a car. Yes, both better forms of transport. He uses Yellow Guy's question as to, how did they get inside of the bus as a good example of, hey, yeah, let me teach you how transport evolved over time. He incorporates it into the lesson. That's really impressive. He lists many forms of transport and their advancements. Like the wheel, you got horses, wagons, buses, planes, boats, submarines, blimps, tanks, scooters, gliders, airport vehicles. He lists a lot of things. There's just one problem that holds back Choo Choo. He very sloppily gives his lesson, just very obviously because of his age. He was definitely struggling to actually continue going on, and then, eventually he passes out to the point where it seems like he's dead. If he was younger, or at least more healthy, like a lot more healthy, then he could have been really great at teaching. But, for what it's worth, he's still pretty good. I'll give him good. Good teacher here, Choo Choo. Now in 4th place, we have Colin the Computer.
Are you allergic
Shut
to
up!
Don't
touch me!
What?
Yeah, Colin actually does a great job at teaching the trio. Not surprising, for the most part, he was very clear, calm, collected. For the most part. Alright, his pros. He says that computers are made of buttons and wires, which is not totally accurate, but is more likely a saying. What are you made of? Says there's a digital mind in his mind, which, kind of means something. I mean, he wasn't lying. And he is a computer, so yeah, I guess that works. He says that computers are clever and can count to 50 in the blink of an eye. Which is, yeah, definitely. He says computers can print pictures and also tell you the time. Yeah, actually, yeah, they can. Colin says that computers can help you find what you want, which is, him referring to search engines, of course. He also asks the trio a bunch of questions that are unimportant, which is pretty accurate to what a lot of stuff you'll do on computers will do. So, It checks out. He lets Yellow Guy know that on a computer, you control an online version of yourself that's separate from your true self, which is a lot of, like, not technically true. It's not like you're actually in the computer, but in a lot of ways, whenever you see it represented in other media, yes, an online persona is someone who's actually separate from you. You know, you don't act the way you do online totally as much as you do in real life. So, yeah, it is sort of controlling a different version of yourself. There's only one con that Colin has. He says that in the digital world, there's over 3 things to do, which is accurate, technically. But the problem is he only shows charts, digital styles, and digital dancing. And he leaves out the other endless possibilities. And that's actually a pretty big con just because of the fact that you can do so much on computers, and he lists 3 things. Colin, you were close to greatness. In fact, you know what? You are great. You're a great teacher, but you could have been one of the greats. I'm sorry to say, you just couldn't reach that pedestal, my friend. We still love you, though. In 3rd place, the bronze medal of teaching, you could say, we have Tony the Talking Clock.
Come on, it's time to go.
Time was old, like a Victorian time.
With cobbles and playing and speaking in rhyme.
With cobbles and chimneys, a simpler time.
And you know, this actually shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. Tony's lesson definitely sticks with the trio for the rest of their lives. Not to mention he lives with them now, so his body is his own constant reminder of the lesson of time. Alright, so pros. Tony says that the past is behind us and the future doesn't exist, as the past has already happened and the future has yet to happen. He says that time is like a ruler that measures the day, and it only goes forward, which is, you know, true. He mentions that times can be old, like the Victorian times. He says that time can be told by the movement of the sun, and time flies faster when you're having fun, which are both true. He says there's a time and a place for mucking around, which is also, you know, a good thing to tell. He says that time eventually gets old and becomes history and a mystery, and it makes way for newer times, which is also true things. When things get older, sometimes they can be forgotten, and then we have to discover them, or maybe we can't discover them. He says that we keep entering the future, things advance, and we can do wonderful things now. And yeah, that's true, Tony. He shows that time is important as it helps us keep track of everything and also keeps things in line. I mean, just imagine what would happen if we had no concept of time whatsoever. Things would get a lot sloppier in real life. And probably his most impactful part of his lesson is that he rapidly ages the puppets to show how time will make your appearance change. A very harsh way to do it, but it definitely sticks with them. And of course, the final words of his lesson, which really sticks with you, and the trio, of course. He says that eventually everyone runs out of time. How, morbid. But he's not perfect, as he does have a couple cons. He says that time is a tool that can be put on places such as the wall or on your wrist, which he's hinting at clocks and watches, but he doesn't really explain it. He just kind of claims that those devices can also be known as time. Not too bad. He could have just explained it better though. And he completely ignores all the trio's questions about time and violently opposes the questioning of the nature of time, even loudly beeping to drown their questions. A teacher who ignores their students', questioning of the lesson, not a great teacher in my eye, or in most people's eyes. I'm pretty sure we can all agree. If Tony would have just let go of his pride as to what his knowledge of time is, he would have been easily number 1. But unfortunately, he just had to be a real stick in the mud about it, a real clock in the mud. You were close though, buddy. In 2nd place, the silver medal of teaching. It goes to none other than Coffin.
Change it to my name then.
Well, I can't now. It's already engraved. I can't unchisel it, can I?
Why not? I know. Why don't you write David's name on me?
Okay, let's crack on, shall we?
Okay, believe me, the 1st and 2nd spots were a real toss-up. It could have gone to either of them, but the person in 1st place just had a little bit more going for them. Just a little bit more. But Coffin is a fantastic teacher. Alright, his pros. He tries lightening the mood before starting the lesson, get your students to listen up. He shows the trios ways to check if someone is dead, which is not, a thing in real life, the examples he gives, I mean, but in that puppet world, yeah, he proved his point right. Duck is dead. He also tells them how to check if you're dead, which is pretty unconventional, but, in that world, it's actually a real thing. He teaches with a more learning during the experience type of way. He doesn't just tell them how the whole death thing goes. He puts them into the actual battlefield of experience. He calmly and justifiably tells Duck he shouldn't be talking because, he's dead. And dead things can't talk. He corrects Duck on the fact that a gravestone needs to have your name, even if it was too little too late. He tells Red Guy if he doesn't know what to say, speak from the heart when giving final remarks. He sends assistants to help Red Guy and Yellow Guy learn to cope with the loss of Duck. So he even has, substitute teachers. What do you know? How professional of him. He lets Duck know that while dead, it's basically alone time from that point on. Which, in reality, if you're dead, you don't really have to think about it because you're dead. At least that's what we know for the most part. But considering Duck is still conscious, well, that's probably the best way of putting it. And he attempts to tell Duck that when someone dies, their loved ones need to mourn, then move on. Before, he gets interrupted by Duck himself. But he does have one con. He gives Red Guy and Yellow Guy a chance to explain if Duck shouldn't be dead, even though that's not really a choice that should be given. Maybe that might be a Puppet World thing too, but in reality, you don't get to choose if someone should be dead if they're already dead, unfortunately. Either way though, Coffin is absolutely fantastic, and for the most part his lesson sticks with them too, especially considering what happened to Duck at the very end. Great teaching skills, Coffin. You are a very professional lad. And finally, in first place, the gold medal of teaching goes to none other than...
Soon everything in the home will be plugged in and part of the electric family. Just like me.
The sooner the better, in my opinion.
Tracy. Well, what do you know? The nicest teacher also becomes the best teacher. And you know what? She's almost perfect. Like, it's almost unbelievable how great at teaching she was. Alright, let's go with the pros. She gives a fun, non-direct example of one of electricity's uses via a dirt phone, giving an early example of what you probably wouldn't be able to do without electricity. She shows many examples of what electricity is used for, such as razors, remotes, lights, and more. She playfully hints at another electric-powered device by saying that the trio don't even know how the TV works. She doesn't directly say, oh yeah, the TV needs electricity. She just says, I bet you don't even know what powers the TV, do you? It causes intrigue. She says that electricity is blue, which is the color most people think it is, and technically it can be, so it's a sort of truth, so we're gonna count it as a pro. She allows the trio to ask what objects are made of electricity, leading to faster understanding and appreciation for the subject. She could have listed a bunch of random things that electricity powers up, but for allowing the trio to ask themselves what things that they have that are powered by electricity, it gives them a better understanding a lot quicker. She incorporates electronic instruments into her lesson song, for just another example of another use for it. She did such an amazing job teaching about electricity that Duck and Red Guy got obsessed over it. She really got them interested in the subject. The mark of an amazing teacher. She says that one day all everyday things will be electric, which is currently true on our path. Like, if we keep going the way we are right now, then yeah, everything will be electrical powered. She's not plugged in, but she shows that her batteries also work as portable electricity of sorts. She explains that batteries need to be replaced every now and then for better electronic performance. She tries to warn Red Guy and Duck that electricity has its limits, but is unfortunately too busted to do so. But at least her intentions were there. It's the thought that counts. And of course, she ends the lesson by saying that everything she just said is why we can't live without electricity, which is actually a thing. Individuals might be able to, of course, but in terms of the entire Earth that we have right now, we are very dependent on electricity, and if it were to go away, yeah, things would not be great. However, as great of a teacher as she is, Tracy does have a couple cons. They're not big ones, but they're still notable. A couple examples that she gives of electrical powered things are false, such as a hammer or a fuzzy blanket. However, ironically, if you think about it, with the fuzzy blanket, maybe she's referring to static electricity, and with the hammer, you do use hammers to help make electrical things, but definitely the hammer is a lot more of a stretch. And even though she seems to have a great understanding of everything electrical and electricity as a whole, she doesn't seem to understand that the hamster probably ate wires and inaccurately says it could be electrical powered, even though it's definitely not. So yeah, a really great teacher we have here with Tracy. I feel like if Yellow Guy was not sort of the subject of two of her misdoings, she would have gotten through to all of them, and they would probably be obsessed with electricity from then on, until of course they do the over-surging of the entire house thing later on. Congratulations, Tracy. You are easily the best teacher in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. How impressive. Keep doing what you're doing, honey. You're great.
And that's why we can't live without electricity. Whoop!
And there we have it. Another teacher ranking in the bag. This was a lot of fun to put together. It had so many notes, you would not believe how many notes I had to take in order to get this as accurate as I possibly could, but I had a great time making it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go drink a bunch of water because my voice is killing me. And with all that being said, a goodbye everyone.